So you've just watched my and probably a dozen other people's dollar store prepping videos. I'm sure you're all excited to run out to the dollar store, get some of those deals, and actually start building your kits and have a leg up on the financial aspect of prepping. Well, don't go to the store until you watch this video first, because I think you'll end up buying a whole bunch of stuff you don't need and will hurt your prepping cause more than help it if you don't listen to these few some tips first. There's a whole school of prepping that says don't buy anything at the dollar store because it's very low quality, made in China, made in wherever. There's lead and everything. Electrical components are hazardous, all sorts of safety issues. There's a whole host of reasons why people say you shouldn't buy at the dollar store. Now, I've just illustrated in my last video a bunch of the stuff that is good to buy at the dollar store, that you should buy at the dollar store because you get a lot of bang for your buck and it's good quality stuff. What I would not suggest buying at the dollar store, and I've got a list of a few things here, and heed these. Now, the first thing that I see in everybody's dollar store prepping video that they should not buy at the dollar store is duct tape. I say this from personal experience. I've used a lot of dollar store duct tape because I used to make stuff out of duct tape. It sucks. It doesn't have a very big fiber count. It tangles easily. It's just awful to work with. Go with the name brand, Duck brand on that one. Invariably somebody always buys the tarp, the dollar store tarp. You don't want to trust your shelter needs to one of the dollar store tarps. They're not very big. It's usually like a 4 by 5 foot, or I think I've seen a 5 by 7 foot that's stretching it. It's not a good value, and they're very cheap material. Usually, third biggest mistake I see everybody making is the polycord, or whatever kind of lashing cord they buy there. That stuff frays pretty easily. Occasionally you can find some cotton twine or something of that nature that is pretty solid, but most of that stuff comes unraveled real easy or frays real easy. Steer clear of most of the dollar store lashing items, including the paracord bracelet from my last video, because that was substandard paracord too. The flashlights, and I touched on this when I showed you that flashlight lantern. Most of the flashlights in the dollar store are very low quality. They used to be 9 LED. Now I've started to notice them coming down to 6 to 4 to 3 LED bulbs. They're not very bright. They're going to break real easy. I think a spring broke off in one, the battery spring, the first time I tried to use it. You don't want to base your illumination needs on a flashlight like that. Go out, get one of these guys, or something similar. Nice adjustable beam, belt clip, back button. This runs on one AA battery. I think this was $5 off Amazon. If you're going with a cheap flashlight, at least go with something, hard metal, something like that, not with a dollar store flashlight. Sewing kits. The dollar store sewing kits are typically not very great. I would say at least go to Joann's or Hobby Lobby or Michael's or one of those, somewhere with an actual sewing section, and buy one of their pre-made kits and maybe add a few things to it, because the dollar store ones just have gotten less and less to where they barely give you anything useful for sewing needs. Alcohol, rubbing alcohol. I've never seen anything above 50% isopropyl in the dollar store. You want to buy like the 90%, it's 90 or 91, which you can buy at Walgreens, Walmart, really cheap. But if you're using alcohol for sanitation and stuff, get the highest concentration you can. Don't go for the cheapo 50% stuff. um, at the dollar store. Trash bags, don't be fooled by the contractor grade or the heavy or tough or not. The black trash bags at the dollar store, don't buy those or any trash bags, because they're only, I think the thicknesses I was looking at were anywhere from 0.3 to 0.45 mil thick. You want at least 1 mil contractor grade trash bags if you're lining your pack or trying to waterproof stuff, because the dollar store ones are almost worse than paper thin. That goes for the Ziploc bags too. If you're storing a cut, half a tomato from yesterday in the fridge in one for a day, yeah, it'll serve its purpose there, but it's not gonna keep things waterproof. It's not gonna keep your matches from getting wet, especially not if you're opening and closing and opening. Those just wear out quickly. Ziploc bags, go for the name brand, get the slider lock. They're not that much more expensive. Glow sticks are another big one. They run out of juice in about 2 or 3 hours, the ones from the dollar store, from personal experience. They're really super thin, like the bracelet types. They're just not very good composition, because they're $1 made on crappy equipment. Get the good 12-hour kind. I know it's money, but find a way to coupon it. Water bottles, like the sport bottles or whatever, they're usually pretty thin. Non-name brand first aid items, except for the items I illustrated in my last video. If you can find any name brand stuff like Johnson & Johnson, Curad, actual Band-Aid brand Band-Aids, go for those. Don't go for the other ones, because they're paper thin, they're tiny. I had a cut on my finger. It took me 3 of them to actually cover the cut to where it was sufficiently covered, because the pads are like a tiny, like less than a 1/4 inch square on some of them. Steer clear of the non-name brand first aid items at the dollar store. Tweezers, usually the tweezers are not the best, because they don't have the correct or a sharp enough point. I tried taking the splinter out with dollar store tweezers one time, and those round nose, or even the pointed nose, didn't work too well, and I had to go get my my mainline Revlon brand tweezers that have a nice sharp point to really dig in there and get it out. You don't want to make medical procedures like that any more painful than they have to be, so for the love of God, don't buy dollar store tweezers. Let's see here. Masks. You're not going to survive a biochemical or nuclear disaster with a dollar store N95 mask or anything like that. If you're worried about getting a mask, go get an actual filtered respirator. Don't rely on the paper thin dollar store surgical masks or whatever they market them as, because they're cheap, they're junk. They don't even form fit half the time to your face. Food items. Now, I know I showed you that can of bean dip. There's two major reasons why I say don't buy food items at the dollar store. Number one, you're paying $1 for that can of ravioli. You can be paying 80-75 cents at Walmart for the same can of Chef Boyardee. And two, the dates are usually very close. You're not going to get more than a couple months of food storage out of stuff you buy at the dollar store, typically. Now, occasionally you can hit on brands that are, they're very good dates, a couple years out. I have hit on that before. The food staples I see everybody buying at the dollar store, Vienna sausages and ramen noodles. The Vienna sausages are usually in those pop-top cans. You want to try and avoid the pop tops because they can burst real easy. Ramen noodles take a whole lot of water to cook. You don't want to be using your water supplies for cooking dry box dinners or ramen noodles or anything else. There's better preparedness food alternatives to what you buy at the dollar store. There are a few good values from time to time, but for the most part steer clear of any of the food items at the dollar stores. Batteries are a big one. Don't buy dollar store batteries. Half the time they're not even alkaline batteries. They're, some sort of I forget zinc. Forget the name of it. Zinc chloride, I believe. I don't remember, but they drain significantly faster. They're nowhere near as good as your name brand Energizer, Duracell, anything you're going to buy for more money. And they're not a very good value. Usually you get no more than a 4-pack. A lot of times it's a 2-pack for $1 of double AAA. So don't go with the batteries from the dollar store. You're better off just buying a large pack from Costco or Walmart or one of those other places. Get you a better value power wise. Safety pins, they probably used to be a good value, but now they're not because they're that pressed metal as opposed to kind of the more, I'm talking about the heads where the pin goes in and is protected. I bought a box from there a while back, and they were just really cheap pressed metal heads instead of like the more formed. Maybe pressed and formed isn't the best words, but they're noticeably cheaper than the good steel ones you buy anywhere else. Eye drops. There were some name brand eye drops at the dollar store, but you only got 2 little individual use tubes to a box, which isn't a good value for your money. Bungee cords, I've seen people buying bungee cords there. They're short. They're not the best quality. Go to, somewhere in the hardware section of Home Depot or Walmart or somewhere and buy kind of the next step up bungee cords if you're going to buy bungee cords. Same with tools from the dollar store, screwdrivers, wrenches. They're just not good quality. I've used them, and I'm saying most of this in this video from personal experience. I bought these items at one time or another and seen firsthand the lack of quality, even though I only spent $1 for it and I was only out $1 for those items. Some of them will fail under much more treacherous conditions that you're trying to use them for than I was trying to use them for, and you'll get hurt or you'll lose time. You'll lose a lot more than just the $1 you spent on them. So with some things in prepping, you need to spend the money, $3, $4, or $5 an item instead of the dollar store stuff, to be able to have the confidence in your gear whenever the emergency arises that you're preparing for. And you need to be able to know that you've got good quality gear in there and that you can stake your life on it and not something cheap and junky made in China from the dollar store. Like I say, in my last video, there's those good deals that you can pull out of there, but as a whole, a lot of the stuff at the dollar store, don't buy it there. Spend the extra money, make a little get a little confidence in your gear. So thank you guys for watching these. Hope you guys learned some stuff. Comment below some of your, maybe a best dollar store buy, a worst dollar store buy, and we'll keep shooting some more videos out here in the near future. Thanks for watching, guys.